Well, my mother's name is, her maiden name is Lopez. So her name was Margaret Lopez, and my father's name is Serapio Cabatuan, and they're both from Cebu, on the northwest of Cebu. And my father's from Puta Tuburan, which is like a subdivision of the Tuburan. Anyway, my mother was born in Cebu, and then they both ended up in Hawaii, and my father was a pineapple and produce worker there, and when they started recruiting Filipinos to work, and inevitably ended up in Stockton, California. My mother had met him, his family, her parents met his family at an earlier time in the Philippines, so when he arrived in Hawaii, he knew my grandfather and my grandmother. So when they did get together in Stockton, my grandfather was extremely sick, in the head, because he used to batter his children to kill their free spirit. His philosophy was, when a child does not respond in a positive way in terms of discipline, you have to beat him to kill that spirit. And so he was very brutal physically to all of his children. His wife had pregnancy for something like 16 years straight, but every other child was stillborn. So they ended up with 8 live children. And the boys within that family were always beaten, and when they were old enough to go to work, 12, 13, he would get them out of school and make them work. And he would take the money and never give them anything. So when they became adults, they were not able to think for themselves, make major decisions, or become productive people. So they always had to be ordered to do whatever needed to be done. So they were never ever successful because they were basically illiterate. And then my mother and her sisters were all confined to the home. They weren't allowed to go out to dances and parties and things like that. So when they were old enough to sneak out and go to dates and go to, parties and things like that after the family's sound asleep, then they would do that. And so when my parents finally joined together again from the Philippines because they knew the family, my father's almost 10 years older than my mother. They eloped, and my grandfather got the word from one of his kababayans, his friend from his community, that my father was going to kidnap my mother on this certain night at a certain time. And so my grandfather was ready. So as soon as he heard the back door shut, picked up his machete and chased them. And this was in Alton, California in 1927. And then he chased them across the town, and then behind their pool hall was a levee. And during that time, the levee was very small. Now there's no way you could jump it. But they both jumped the levee and got away. And it was with the help of another kababayan of my father, and his name was Neon Cabriana, who had an automobile, and he drove them to get married. And so when they got married, it was like a year to the date that they left, that my oldest sister was born. And so there's 5 girls and 1 boy in my family, and it seems like everybody eloped. It must have been in the blood, or a tradition or something. But it was between 17 and 18 years old. But anyway, when he chased my father swore he would never bring Margaret back. And sure enough, he didn't. But he passed away when he was 81 years old. And my mother passed away before she reached 80. And so...
Let me interrupt 1 second. You left out one part, I think, about your grandfather. Why do you think he was so mean?
Oh, well, he practiced the Spanish tradition. He was like the don of the house, like Don Roberto or Don Venancio. That was his name, Venancio Lopez. And so everybody under him had to take orders. And when he beat his children, the boys, he'd pick up a 2x4, anything, and just beat them. And then he felt that if you break the spirit of a child, the child will always be obedient. And because his last name was Lopez, he always professed that he was more Spanish than Filipino, which is something a lot of Filipinos do. Although if you look at him, he looks Chinese. And his skin is like a Chinese man. And he's very fair-skinned, but he's not brown like your regular Filipino with a flat nose.